computer.
And do you have the questions in front of you, or do you want me to ask them to you, or?
Oh, either way, I have them in front of me, or you can ask. And hey, everybody, sorry for all the technical difficulties. Juliet, Dillon, Clark here, and we did this on Zoom, and we're going to post it so you guys can see it for those of you who couldn't switch over. But thank you for being here and submitting questions. I love it. So yes, Steve, let me just talk a little about myself because I could do that forever. Kidding. And then we'll get into this. My name is Juliet Dillon Clark, and I am a 9-time author. And as part of my journey into being an author, I started Winsome Media Group, which is a self-publishing group, because I didn't like the business model that other self-publishing groups out there were using. It's a model that is more about them and their profits than it is about the entrepreneur and the expert space and being able to sell the right products to entrepreneurs and care more about their journey than they do about their bottom line. So that was the first part of my journey. Second part of my journey is I learned after my first book that absolutely flopped, that buying promo was a worthless adventure. And the self-publishers sell it to you. They prey on you and your expert status. And you have to remember when you walk into the self-publishing world that you're like, you may be an expert in your field, but in their field, you're working in the mailroom and you don't know anything and you're not speaking their language. And many times they play on your ego and they take advantage of that. So as part of that, after my first book flopped, I started learning how to build an audience organically. And that is now what I teach to authors, because you're not throwing money out the window with worthless promo. You are learning to build the basics to build an audience that will serve you long term. And the goal for any nonfiction expert authorpreneur should be to be able to get that book out, to be able to start a movement, sell your book easily, and then translate that price of the book into a profitable program where you're going to make 10 to 100 times what you would make. So let's get into these questions. Steve, you want to ask them? And please ask them in order, because that's how I have the answers here.
Sure. And also, I just wanted, when I went to your Amazon page, I noticed that you started out actually writing fiction, correct?
I did. So fiction is much, much harder to build a following. So, and in usual Juliet Clark fashion, I do everything the hard way. And, so yeah, I did it that way. And now I want to teach people to not do it the hard way.
Absolutely. Perfect. Okay, so I will jump to the questions. So Tanisha Williams asked, and she asked a number of questions. I know she's in the middle of writing a book herself. The first question she asked is, what are some strategic steps into building your author platform if you're still writing content for your book?
Yes, and Tanisha, this is a really great question, and where most authors do fail is they wait until the end, and then they don't have an audience. So it's one of those things where you're doing it backwards again. Not you particular, but everybody does it that way. What I recommend is that you set aside 1/2 hour a day the minute you start thinking about writing your book and start building that platform. What happens is a lot of us get this, I'm going to call it that 4-year-old Disney magical thinking, where we think we're going to write the book and it will magically sell. And this is actually a slow, strategic build. So if you are taking 3 to 6 to 9 months to a year to write your book, this is the time to be building that audience and that movement around your book. So that 1/2 hour a day allows you to start building the foundational steps that you're going to need to be an authorpreneur, which is getting that website up that will convert, getting those social media pages and groups up and going that you need to have going, building your email list, and also getting together a really great lead magnet so that people know what you do and who you are way before that book is ever published. This sounds like a lot, But here's the deal, and here's why this is so important. If you have a book and you don't have a platform, all you really have is a book. And at the end of the day, for entrepreneurs, we want a book, we want a business, we want a lifestyle. So if you actually have a book and a platform, you have a movement, you have a means to be able to achieve those entrepreneurial goals. And that's why that's so important. I'm going to tell you a little secret right here and now. For most of you entrepreneurs, if you had done this and built these funnels out at the beginning of your journey, you wouldn't even need a book. And now Tanisha gets on. Hi, Tanisha. We just answered one of your questions.
And of course, Tanisha, this will be recorded so you can catch the piece that you missed later on.
Later on. I turned on the record since people were coming over. Next question.
Next question is, when should we start a launch group? Is it, and you kind of already answered this, but I'll read through it for everybody else. When should we start a launch group? Is it better to send personal emails or messages to invite people?
Okay, so when I looked at this question, I assumed you meant a community, bless you, on Facebook. Is that what the question is about? That's one of those things that you need to start back at the beginning. And some really important points about that is this is why planning and budgeting and having a marketing plan and a strategic build is so important back at the beginning of your book. Because if you do this right, you have already, before you write a single word, identified who your book is for, identified who your niche audience is, and where you are going to connect with them at. So if you know those core principles about your book, that's the time to start a community. One of the things that happens with the community, and we just talked about this a minute ago, is you want your community to become your movement, the basis for your sales and who you're publishing to. So when you're bringing people into this group, do not just go and put all of your friends into it, because probably most of your friends aren't really interested in what you do. It is better for you to build relationships and have a small core of people who really love what you do and are pressing your movement along and inviting other people than it is to have a big group of people who are not committed. Remember, when you have a Facebook full of non-committed people, that is more about your ego than it is your movement. So what I suggest you do is get the book, get the Facebook community up and going, get your content together that you're going to be feeding that community, because for most movements it's educational. And then from there, as you see people on Facebook talking about this topic, reach out to them via personal Facebook email, write them a note, friend them, and talk a little bit about it. And if it seems like it's something they're interested in, extend them an invitation. If they say no, they say no, they're not your people. But if they say yes, then you're building the foundation for that movement. So be very polite about it. I know all of you have had this done to you, where somebody opens a group and they just dump you in it, and you look at it and you're like, I'm not one bit interested in how to do the perfect garage sale. And it's embarrassing. Now I have to get myself out and I have to mute you, and I'm busy, and why did you do this?
Absolutely. So the next question that was asked was, you spoke a little bit about, well, actually mostly about Facebook, but there's also the other social media profiles. Is there one that's better than another?
I'm going to say no, but I'm going to put a big but there. When I talk about you identifying your niche audience before you ever start writing or before you start building your platform, the next logical step for you is to build your client or your reader avatar. And that includes your demographic. Is it male? Is it female? Is it 45 to 65? Is it, are they working professionals? Really get down and draw a very detailed picture about who your ideal reader is, and then go do the research in order to find out where your demographic next fits or best fits. I actually, in Entrepreneur 101, we have an entire module that talks about engaging social media, and that is one of the things we cover are the demographics, the pros and cons of each and every platform. So the reason I ask you to do this, and we have all this information in there, is because if you are trying to connect with an audience of professionals 45 to 65 and you're over on Instagram, chances are those are not your people. You need to find out where the income level is, where, you know, is LinkedIn right for you? Is Facebook right for you? Twitter, a lot of people don't know that Twitter has mostly become junior high and high school students and college students. Now, if you're trying to build a business off that, you want an audience that has money to buy your books and your programs. So Twitter may not be the place you want to be, because I don't know about your kids, but I don't give my kids $2,000 to join a program. It doesn't happen.
And so the next question is, what is an affordable way of doing a book trailer? And actually, and for the rest of us, can you tell us a little bit about what a book trailer is? And
yes, a book trailer is an introduction to your book. And I actually have gotten away from doing book trailers per se. Since my business is more geared towards bringing you into creating movement that will sell your book, I would identify a motivational trailer that is more geared towards motivating that movement. So to give you an idea of one that's really great, go over to richgerman.com, and that's RichGerman.com. We just did his book. Let me show you guys a picture real quick, called Blue Laguna. And he actually is donating all the profits to this book to ocean conservation. And he has done a very inspirational video book trailer that not only talks a little bit about the book, but talks about his passion. And so that's the kind of trailer that I would recommend you do, because you are trying to start a movement towards what you do. So make it very inspirational for people. When it comes to the actual mechanics of the book trailer, I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is one area where you get what you pay for. And so if you're looking for inexpensive, you don't want to be an expert in your field and put something out that looks inexpensive, because that sort of erodes your credibility. So just look for affordable may not be what you're looking for there. I hope that was an okay answer. Oh, we lost you. You're muted. You're muted.
I keep coughing, and so I don't want to bring that into it. But are there more affordable ways to do that? Do you have any guidance as to kind of budget that or anything along those lines?
You know, well, here's what I would say typically. You know, I just saw a wonderful motivational video at an event I was at that Suzanne Evans did. And I mean, you were there, you saw it. I think Sandy Moniz was there. She's on this too. You know, that was really long. It was about, I think, almost 5 to 7 minutes. I don't remember exactly how long. But that was done in the context of a room where, you know, we've all paid to be there. So we're pretty much passive hostages. We've paid to have a video like that. If you keep it between 1 minute and 2 minutes, you should be able to get a nice one done for $600, I would say. So yeah, I think I would budget in that range. And you know, there are a lot of good people out there that can do things like that. I know Danielle Pettiford does, you know, has the ability to do nice videos. So you know, there are a lot of people out there, and you can always reach out to me at my email address, and I can give you some names as well. A lot of it depends on if you want something that's creative or you want something that's just a straight launch video too.
Great. And next question is, I know you've actually written about this, how does one use the Amazon author page effectively?
Yes, I actually wrote a whole mini book on this, telling people how to do it. So the first place that this comes into play is when you are interviewing your self-publisher. This is really important because probably 80% of the self-publishers out there don't allow you to run your own Author Central page. So that should be something that's back in that planning stage when you first start your book. When you start your book, that's when you should be contracting that self-publisher and finding and asking those questions. The reason that they don't like to let you in is because that's where you run your commission percentages and reports out of that area as well. So that's the first thing, is make sure that your publisher allows you to have that page and that the book is run from that page. Once you've gotten that out of the way and you open up your account, it's very important to include professional pictures, especially if you're an expert in your field. But also you want to include some, family or personal pictures of some sort. Let's say you're off skiing, you're doing things that are your hobby. The reason you want to include those is because as an author, people want to get to know you. They don't just want to know that you have this book. They want to know you. And if they're going to be a part of that movement, they want to know that you're ethical, you're funny, you're kind, whatever it is they're looking for. So include a little bit of personal on it. Include a bio that's engaging, not the boring, I have a master's in psychology from, BYU. You don't want those kinds of details that you might use on a resume. You want things that will connect with your audience. So the bio needs to be a lot about you, why you do what you do. You also need to have links in that bio that go back to your website, that go back to your social media pages, that go to anything. I even put lead magnets in there so that if people want to find out more about me, then they can just click on sign up for my email list and we're done. The other things that you need to hook up are, it'd be a great place to put videos. There's an avenue there for you to give tidbits of information via video. People like that because it's personal and they get to see you in the context of how you communicate. Also, your blogs. You should be, if you're an author and building that movement, you should be putting together a blog or a vlog. Make sure that's connected so people can read your articles in one place. And then, I think I got all that. But your Author Central page should be a hub of information where people can click on there. And there's even, people don't realize that on your author page, there's even a place where they can click and have a conversation with you. So encourage people to use that as well.
That's an interesting feature. So the next question is, what are some products and services that you can add along to your book so that you can increase your revenue or build more of a business around it?
That is pretty much endless. If you're an expert in your field, the programs, the masterminds, downloadable programs, there are so many things that you can make extra money from, and hopefully that is the goal of your book, is to be able to make 10 times or 100 times the price of your actual book, so that that's really your revenue stream. Most people do not make a living just from their books. I just want everybody to know that. Where the stream comes in is what you can do and how you can position yourself as an expert from that book. Does someone on here, Zaza, can you mute, please? I don't know if she heard, but okay. Next.
Let's see. And what is and I'm not really sure what this means, so maybe you can translate. What is your take on writing epistolary novels geared towards young adults and new adult markets?
Okay, I have to admit, I had to look this word up too. This is, if I looked it up right, it is letter writing novels. And my first sense was, wow, that sounds really wonderful. My friend Sherry Balul actually does something a little bit like this in her business, but I don't really know how much of a market there is for young adults and new adult markets, because I think that age group, that demographic, has really lost the art of letter writing. Where I would see you making some headway with this is maybe the older generations who remember letters. And, you know, we're so addicted to our technology. I don't know how many people actually write letters and use the U.S. postal system anymore. So I don't know that this would be effective.
I'm wondering if included in that category would also be like the Dork Diaries or whatever the thing is of a wimpy kid. I don't know enough about it to be able to. I know my youngest daughter loves those, so.
Well, maybe I missed the mark there, but those are nonfiction, aren't there?
No.
Yeah, they're not nonfiction. So.
No, they're fiction.
Yeah, they're fiction. So yeah.
Ah, ouais, je vois ce que tu veux dire.
Sounds like we have mixed answers there.
Yeah. And it looks like something to look more into.
Yeah.
So the next question is, and this is kind of like the big question is, what makes a bestseller?
Well, you know, it's interesting what makes a bestseller being the big question, because really, I think I answered a lot of that back on Tanisha. Tanisha asked this in a different way. She asked it, what are the strategic steps to get there, as opposed to just what makes it. So a lot of that was answered back there, beginning with your platform and starting a movement from your platform. That is the way to truly be able to get yourself to #1 on Amazon. Now, there are a lot of ways to do it without that happening, but you have to think at the end of the day, is this about me getting my message out there, or is it about having, saying I'm a #1 author on Amazon? I have people who come to me and their goal is, I just want to be a #1 author. They want to be, published in an obscure category. And, yay, I'm a #1 author. I sold 3 books. And there are categories out there you can do that with. But I usually don't take them on as clients, because my road is not the road. My mission in life to serve my clients is to help you be able to spread your message and start that movement. It's not to just say, I sold 3 books and I have a #1 bestseller.
Mm-hmm. It's not a vanity thing. It's making a difference.
It's making a difference versus ego. Absolutely. So what makes a bestseller? Building that platform, starting a movement, and being able to serve as many people as possible with the message that you have.
And then I don't know if you saw this question. There are a few questions that were asked in the group feed itself, and I think one of them is a great question. How do you get out of your mind and into print what is in your heart?
Yes, I did see that one. That was the last one. There are a lot of ways to do that. There are meditations that can help writers, and you'll find that if you start a practice of meditating every morning, or even when you set aside that writing time, just take 5-10 minutes to relax. That will start to help get those creative juices flowing. I used to have, when I first started writing, or even when I got stuck sometimes, I would use the meditation a couple days in a row, and you'll find if you do it right before bed that your subconscious mind kind of picks it up and starts working on the ideas. And I was always amazed that when I did that for a day or two, I would wake up one morning and the answer was there. Because, it's exhausting in your head sometimes when you're like thinking it and overthinking and going back and thinking it again, and the answer's not coming. A lot of times, if you just give your mind a break and a push, an intentional push in the right direction, it'll take care of it while you sleep. The other thing that I recommend you do here is just journaling. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when you journal and you really get into it, you're journaling from your heart, and your feelings are never wrong. So that's another way. And don't be afraid to go back and look at that journal and just start writing straight from it. Another way that I find is really useful for writing as well is being able to take my iPhone and just having a topic and speaking about it and having it transcribed.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, it's for some people, it's easier for me to speak from the heart sometimes than it is to write from the heart. So by transcribing it, you can, put a little bit of formality. You can add the words back in that you want, but the heartfelt is there from your speaking, as well as you get a tone and a flavor of your personality as well.
Mm-hmm. Those are both things that I mentioned somewhere in a post that over the last few years I've written nearly 1 million words and I do these morning pages. And I do it online, so that's why I know exactly how many words I've written. But just that free-flowing, getting your thoughts out onto screen, it's just a great way to go from your head to your heart and to connect those different things.
It is, and I'm going to tell you guys something else. One of the things that happens in my entrepreneur mastermind is we work a lot on inner game, because what you just talked about with the writing, that's inner game. That is on some level, there's a fear there between your heart and your head that is a disconnect, that for some reason your heart's not letting it flow into your head. And we talk about things like that. We talk about solutions for, some people are really afraid of social media. They don't want to share what's out there. One of my very good friends who is also an author, when she wrote her book, on the first draft, she had some beta readers and they came back and they said, this is good information, but you have a lot of stories that you could have shared that are very vulnerable. And she really had to take a deep look inside about, why am I not sharing those vulnerable stories? What am I afraid of? So she took just one of them, her scariest one, and she wrote it. She put it in the book. She gave it back to the beta readers. And to this day, it is one of the most talked about stories in her book. And it was just that getting over that fear of, sharing your actual self versus sharing the information you have to share.
I just recently read Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, and she talks about similar experiences for herself. Just being able to get, and she comes from a very academic background. So, but she also talks about things that are very heart-centered, and to go from that, the academic background to the being vulnerable, which is what she talks about, was just quite a process for her.
It is. And another one that I love is Big Magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When you think about, I have to tell you, there was something that I'd been putting off. And of course there was a fear, and I read her book, and it's Elizabeth, I can't remember her last name.
Gilbert.
Yes, Elizabeth Gilbert. And there was this concept in there about, if the idea comes to you and you don't act on it, the idea will jump to someone else.
Right.
And I actually had this idea for a while, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's holding me back, but I better act on it because I don't want it to jump to someone else.
Right. So one of the questions I have for you, and it's not written down anywhere, but I just wrote out most of about 30,000 words into a book that I've got. And it's about playing creativity in business and so forth. And writing it, doing the creative part of it was really easy for me, but transitioning from going the creative part to going back and editing it was and continues to be much more of a challenge, because you're in different, kind of a different space. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, I tell people when they write books, don't go back and micromanage your chapters. Write the entire book and then go back and do your rewrites. It's actually a funny process when you go back and do your rewrites. There are days when you reread it where you go, oh my gosh, I am a rock star writing genius. Look at what I wrote this day. And then there are other days when you can see the difference and you're like, oh my gosh, I had like giant brain farts that day. So, you know, it's kind of a journey in and of itself when you go back and do those rewrites. The things I would say to you are, don't be super hard on yourself. Have an extra set of eyes look at it. Maybe have a proofreader or someone you trust. I mean, you have to have the book edited at some point. That's a must. But have them go back and give you some feedback. That's what I was just talking about with my friend Carol, who used to, you know, had the beta readers. Is they came back and they told her, this is okay, but it's not very compelling. You share you. So that's what I would do is have somebody go back that's a little bit more objective and give you some really good feedback. Make sure that person's not a yes man. Be really upfront. It doesn't matter what you say. My feelings are not going to be hurt. You know, if I don't ever get back to, no, I'm just kidding. But, you know, make that clear. You don't want to hear, Steve, this is the most fabulous thing I've ever written. You want to hear, I see this missing. Doesn't transition well. You want to hear really good feedback.
I'm very fortunate that my wife is her personality type is an editor-in-chief, and so she can rip things apart relentlessly. In fact, which is wonderful, honestly, because it's, you know, I'm writing something and I put my heart into it, and she'll say, well, you know what, it could be better if you did this, or you know, well, you need to put whatever here, or just doing the different little things. And I took it, we got married when I was still in college, and we were both still in college, and so I took advantage of her back then too, which she was happy to do, so.
Okay, so I'm not going to have to refer you to a marriage counselor over this.
No, absolutely.
Over this book.
No, it's a great. It's a very much an asset in my relationship. So.
Good.
But for those people who don't have a built-in beta reader, what's a good way to find or to create those relationships?
Maybe you have a whole group of creative people. Maybe ask, you know, if somebody would like to read a chapter and give you some positive feedback, or even negative feedback, period.
Sure.
You know, that's a good way to go. You know, you just develop relationships with people who will give you honest feedback.
Great. Thank you very much for your wisdom. Do you have anything that you would like to share at the end? And particularly, how can people learn more about what you have to offer and how people could get in contact with you?
Well, I do have a lead magnet right now, which is a 28-day platform building challenge. And it'll give you a really good idea of all the things you need to have in place to really get that platform built. And it's just a wet your whistle type of thing, the mechanics. It doesn't get into the creative or anything like that. But I'll post that in the group if anybody's interested in joining and seeing. I think Sandy, you know, Sandy's on this call. I think she has it already since she's one of my coaching clients. But it just gives you a good idea. And I think you'll see from that, wow, there really is a lot of work to do here. And it, you know, it goes back to Tanisha's question about, how do I strategically do this while I'm writing my book? And I commend her for asking that question, because there's a recognition there that is the time to do it with it. Right. So I will post that in the group for all of you. And I'm in the group. I'm in Steve's group. So if you want to reach out and ask me questions, either post them in the group, or you can, if we're not friends already, I think I'm friends with everybody in here, just send me a personal message and we'll set up a time to talk and see how we can serve you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I know, speaking for myself, I feel very much enlightened by what you've shared today. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank all of you guys for showing up. All right. I will get this video out to you, Steve.
Great. And I'll post it when I get it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.